I'm Eli,
I'm Joey.
I'm Daniel.
and our topic that we're going to be discussing today is the EU's Article 13. For those of you that don't know, Article 13 is an article proposed by the EU intending to strengthen copyright laws across the European Union. The EU, or European Union, is a political and economic union of 28 member states that are located primarily in Europe. This contains the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, France, Poland, Sweden, and many other member states. For our thesis, we chose to look at what extent international copyright laws would be affected if Article 13 were to pass in the EU. We're going to be looking at this through the political, socio-cultural, and economic lenses. For my lens, I chose socio-cultural. With the establishment of Article 13, any and all sharing of copyrighted material is punishable. As of now, there isn't much data released to the public as to what this punishment might be. It could be anything from a small fine to jail time. We don't know yet just because there isn't enough information. Restricted media access. Several websites with links or images for the internet world could be taken down or heavily fined. This means that many websites just won't want to go through the trouble of having to pay the money and simply will just delete themselves, ending in a lot of less websites for us to use. Then also restricted international and technological contact. As previously mentioned, any and all sharing of copyrighted material is punishable, whether sent or received. This means popular internet memes will no longer be legally be shared across platforms or with each other. What does this mean for the internet? Copyright images will no longer be legally mutually shared, as previously explained. Websites like Google News will no longer be able to share information about topics they don't have rights to without proper legal documentation to owning said rights to the topic. All media would be monitored by technological filters that sort out what is or isn't copyright through set code. This is a really big issue considering there are so many ways this code could fail. One of these issues being that someone might be able to hack into the code, or the code simply will break at a certain point or not register certain images. It'll take a long time to perfect and a long time to implement. Not only that, but any and all media will be monitored. So personal images or other personal things that you send will now be monitored all across the world. Now some might think, oh, it's no big deal. That's only a small number of people that are going to be affected by the article. The EU is bigger than you think. Out of a total population of 506,279,458 citizens, 433,651,012 regularly use the internet. This number is only 12% of the international internet usage. Now for the economic ones.
So I'm going to start off the economic lens with a quote by Susan Wojcicki on the CEO of YouTube. She says, "And if implemented as proposed, Article 13 threatens hundreds of thousands of jobs, European creators, businesses, artists, and everyone they employ." This quote shows that in an economic sense, Article 13 would be detrimental to the European economy, as it would result in major loss of jobs, especially for people such as artists and content creators. As shown by this graph, which is the information on the United States copyright system, copyright strikes can be very harmful for people economically. The median amounts for copyright infringement was $266,086, which is very bad for someone economically. The purple area of the graph represents infringement amounts of $150,000 or less. The teal color, which makes up the majority of the graph, represents infringements of amount of $150,000 to $1.5 million. And the orange amount represents infringements of more than $1.5 million. Any of these amounts would be detrimental to people, and if Article 13 is passed, these amounts could be increased. Another problem with Article 13 is a portion of it which places a tax on links and information used by news sources, similar to what Eli was talking about earlier. The new link tag would make it that only large news companies that would make a lot of money would be able to control all the news of and information that people get. And even if small platforms were able to comply with Article 13 regulations, they would still not be able to scale up or compete with bigger platforms. And this raises the question of what would solutions be to this. One of them would be to, instead of having a copyright law that punishes users with major fines, it would instead try to limit the amount of fines that people get and try to stop copyright from happening. And onto the political ones.
So I'm going to be covering the political lens, and as this is a proposed bill in the EU, it's very deeply rooted in politics. So, quote from Ms. Podosova, who is a European business reporter. She says that media companies establish the principle that the upload filter can be used to overturn democratically agreed copyright flexibilities, such as parody and quotation. So what this means is that, so say you make a parodial work of a Disney film, but Disney doesn't agree with the message you're pushing through that, they could potentially come and strike down your video because they don't agree with it, and YouTube's or whoever you upload it to isn't going to prevent it because so many of these claims happen every day that they can't go through and take the time and limit what's all being uploaded to the platform. So this graph shows prison sentence extensions in the US. So out of all the prison sentences, out of prison sentence extensions in the US, 66.3% of criminals that had direct infringement on copyright or had promoted circumvention devices for copyright, 66% of those inmates had gotten an extension on their sentence. So a political solution to the issue would be a greater push for lobbying in the EU. So people could go and talk against their government and donate money to these politicians so that they could get their point across that most EU citizens don't want this bill passed. A significant limitation of lobbying is that it's very expensive, and like media giants like Disney or DreamWorks or Sony, they have a lot more money than the population, so they're going to be able to outbuy the population and push for the Article 13 to be passed.
Now as a quick fallback to the sociocultural lens, we're going to be looking at the more cultural side. As a show of hands, how many of you own, have owned, or know someone who owns a Twitter account? Almost everyone, right? In 2016, Justin Goldman took a photograph of NFL quarterback Tom Brady and Boston Celtics president and manager Danny Ainge in the Hamptons and posted it to his Snapchat story. This photo ended up going viral, and several media companies used it as a result without his permission. Because of this, without pay either. Because of this, he ended up taking it to court, where Catherine Forrest, a Southern District of New York judge, ruled that by simply embedding a tweet, a function which Twitter makes simple, Forrest says, the publications engaged in a technical process. She readily admits that none of them downloaded the photo and then uploaded it to their sites. But, she argues, it doesn't matter that the publications weren't hosting the photos themselves. This is a large consideration in Article 13, even been stated that with the passing of Article 13, embedding a tweet or using an image that does not belong to you could result in the same fine. This means that simply by retweeting someone's tweet, you could get the possibility of a fine. Now for solutions. Our main overall solution is to not follow through with the establishment of Article 13. This would probably solve almost all the problems, as it just makes it so it's not there at all. But some limitations to it are that the article may pass before the people's voices are heard. There are several petitions online going around with millions of signatures, not just from the EU, from all around the world, that do not want this article to be passed. Another limitation is that the EU may have already thought out and denied other possibilities. So instead of making a new article, they may have already looked at that idea and say, no, we're going with this. This is our best option. Another option would be to make the article less strict. A legal article of this matter would have to be as specific and strict as it can, which would be a really big downfall because they would have to have word for word what's going to happen if you do not follow the rules. Another limitation is that the article is already being processed and voted on. Things like these take a lot of time, and yes, it will take a lot of time to implement into society, but the article, once it's passed, which will probably happen again before people's voices are heard, the article is going to be passed, probably. So there's nothing we can do about it, people can do about it. They're pretty much going to pass it without giving the people a voice. And then our quick study.
Okay, just a few questions for you. Joey, I'm going to start with you first. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem the group identified?
I think Eli's cultural perspectives really had a big impact on how I understood Article 13, because he was able to bring it and make it relatable using Twitter and the picture that was shown, so that it was very accessible to me and I was better understanding of Article 13.
Okay, thank you. Next is for you, Daniel. What is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
So our team's overall resolution was try to find a version of Article 13 that was a little less strict, and I feel that all of us had the similar idea, was to find it a little less strict, but my total idea was to instead find a different solution that was instead try to limit copyright instead of just trying to limit the bill. So that really impacted my research.
Okay. And then finally, Eli, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
I feel like I wish there was more research for us to look at because it's a new topic that's only now out. It's a very recent thing, so there wasn't much research or much info for us to do with it. So I feel like if we were able to find even more info than we had, our presentation might have been maybe a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth, and that would have helped with our solution.
Was there anything specific when you think about something you just couldn't find that you wanted?
The money in the UK, how they punish people in the UK for copyright, we looked for a long time to find it, and we just couldn't come up with anything.